Right, so what I've got here now is I've got my little stand with some blue tack on the top, and I've got here some blue tack on the bottom, and I'm going to place that here as though it was somebody's hand. And I've also put some base coat onto this nail tip here. Forgot to mention that earlier. So you will need base coat. So stick that onto there, and then you'll be able to practice. Now, the first thing we're going to look at really is an all-over colour, and I hope you can see this quite clearly. So, first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I don't go straight onto the nail. I'm just going to bring some air out to make sure there's no spatter coming through. I'm going to test the paint flow, and then once I've got it, I'm going to start working on the nail. Now, what's very important here is that you don't let this paint and air mix. You don't want the paint to come out too fast. You want a quite small amount of paint to come through with a lot of air, and that means that the paint, as it hits the nail, will be dry. Now, if you do accidentally make it too wet, just bring your airflow on and then just dry it off a bit without any paint flowing through. And then that will dry it off. And then what you should have then is a solid colour on the nail. And that would be just like an all-over colour on the nail. Now that's drying, so it's probably a good idea when you're practicing to have a few of these stands, because otherwise you're going to try and get that off and you might damage it, because we can use this later to do some other exercises on the nail, because all over colour is fairly straightforward. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to spray up a couple more nails with an all over colour so that we can go on to the next stage. So just make sure you start the air away from the nail, then go onto your hands to check the airflow of the paint too, and then you can go on to the nail itself. And as I said, don't have too much paint coming through to the mix of the air. Build it up slowly. You can see I'm just turning the airbrush round to get a solid colour onto that nail. Get one more. Again, check the airflow, the paint's coming through, then start spraying the nail. Now you can't see the paint coming out the end of the gun, so you've got to get used to where it's going to be, where you think it's going to hit, so you don't get your client's fingers all covered and the hand all covered in paint. Now this distance is quite important. Let the airflow switch off. Now you can see that it's a nice even colour, but it's not wet. It's dried as it's gone on to this nail tip, and that's exactly what you want. So we've got 3 nails here, and what we're going to look at next is probably a kind of like faded effect up the nail. So I'm actually going to clean out the black from this gun, and all I'm going to do is just get some airbrush cleaner into the well, and I'm going to spray it into my bag here. until it all runs out. So I'll come back to you in a moment when I've just cleaned out this gun. Another useful thing when you're cleaning out your gun is to have some like cotton buds, and you can just poke these into here and just wipe around, and then you can continue spraying out your paint. Now if you're going from a dark colour to a light colour, I probably should have, no, yeah, if you're going from a dark colour to a light colour, what you need to do is to make sure you get rid of all the dark colour. If you're going from a light colour to a dark colour, you'll find that you can just clean it through not so efficiently, and the dark colour will take over the light colour that was in there before. So now I've got that, now I've got this all cleaned out, I'm going to get some white. Again, I'm going to give it a good shake up to make sure that the paint is thoroughly mixed. And of course, any paints with a kind of a glitter in, you need to make sure this is done really, really well, because the glitter will settle out. So I'm just going to get some drops of paint in here. Now this is quite a thick paint, this one. This is Createx paint. I'm not sure how this is going to spray, but we'll try it. Yeah, there we go. Right, so first thing I'm going to do here is I want to put a fade up this nail. So I'm going to try and do it so it's best you can see it. First of all, I'm going to start off the paint coming out, and then I'm going to aim the airbrush towards the corner of that nail there to build up the density. And then we're going to work it at an angle up the nail. And then we get a colour fade going up the nail. Now of course you can build up the density, missed a little bit off that side, so I'm just going to come round that side and just hit there. So just build up the whiteness a little bit more on the end, and then just as I move away from the nail in height, it will cause the fade to come in up the nail, as you can see. Now obviously you start off closer, so you get a density going on to that corner, and then as you want to do your fade, what you've got to do is to lift the airbrush height away from the nail, and that will then give you not so dense a colour on the nail and produce the fade up the nail. I'll just do it one more time. So here we go. Go onto this corner, get the air, check the paint flow, go onto this corner here, build up that density on that corner. Don't forget that little bit round that side. Density across there at an angle, and then as you come higher, just move away until you build up that fade that you want up the nail. Now that does take a bit of practice, I have to say, it does. But with a little bit of practice, you should be able to get that going. So let's do this one again. Check your paint flow through this corner here. Build up the density. Don't miss that little bit there. Build it up, the depth of the whiteness on the nail. Get that corner. Once you've got that going at an angle across, you can now lift up higher and then just let it fade in to the nail. And then you've got your colour fade. Now colour fades are quite popular. Obviously you can use them in different colours. Different colour combinations, you should say, to suit what your client wants. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to spray these all over with white. So I'm just going to go all over the nail. And I say this is just for practice, so what I'm doing here. Spray them all over with white. So I get a nice even colour. And I've blocked out all of that black underneath. There's one done. Like that. And again, this is all good practice because it's all about aiming the gun in the right places. And don't forget, you've got to keep this facing you because you can't turn your client's hand round because obviously it's attached to their wrist. Makes sense, doesn't it? Air's still flowing as I finish there, so I don't get a spatter off the gun. But I will always start off the nail, check the airflow and the paint mix, and then come back onto the nail, so I don't get that spatter onto the nail. There we go. Even coat of the white. Now, as I said, I'm using black and white mainly so that you can see the effects more clearly. And you want to get the paint going onto the nail as dry as you possibly can get it. Let the air flow so that your needle is clean. So there I've got all over colour there again. So I'm just going to clean this gun out and you can join me back when I've done that. Check my airflow and then go onto the nail. Now when you're using this a light colour like this, it's a good idea to put white underneath. Now obviously, if I was using a yellow on the back and I decided to bring in, say, a red, I would get orange in the middle. And it helps if you know your colour wheel. So if you get a colour wheel, it'll help you decide how colours mix. There we go, we've got the green in the middle there now. A bit more solid on the front. And we've got the green, yellow at the back, green in the middle and blue on the front. So one colour overlaid onto another colour will affect the colour that you get in where the two colours overlap. And we call that a blend, colour blend. So if I use blue and red, I would get purple in the middle, and so on. So once you know your colour wheel, you'll be able to decide how one colour will affect another colour. So the next thing we're going to do is have a look at the French, doing a French. Now French with airbrush is very much used because when you're doing a French with an airbrush, as the nails grow out, you start to see the natural nails showing, and you have to do kind of like a refill of the French. And with airbrush, that is really straightforward because you just remove the airbrush French with some non-acetone free if it's on acrylics. Or if it's on, say, natural nails, you can just use acetone or acetone free to remove the airbrush that you put on before. But if it's on, say, acrylics and you've used, say, a white tip when you did your acrylics, then as the nail grows forward, you will start to see the natural nail as a line separate from your French tip. And you can use an airbrush just to bring that French back up so that the new part of the nail is not showing anymore, and you've got a nice French again. And you can do that without removing the French tip. So airbrush is very useful for that. Another useful tip is that when you put your before you start using your paint again, make sure that you remove any loose paint that may be stuck in the top of your pot. Because when you tip the paint into your pot here, like into your airbrush, if there's any loose bits of paint here, they can fall into the well and then clog up your gun. So I'm going to put some white into here, and I'm just going to spray over this nail with the white paint. Again, I want to make sure that there's no colour coming through from before, so I'm going to have to, because I used a dark colour, I have cleaned it out, but I just want to make sure that I am getting a clean white through. So here we go, I'm just going to spray this all over to get my white base that I wanted. Now I'm doing it the opposite way around here to what you would normally do, mainly so that you can see what I'm doing. So let's just cover all these up here that we did before with our white. Now white is quite a large molecule in itself, and it will sometimes not come out as smooth as you want it to, but by the time you put your top coat on, it'll be fine. There we go, we've got our white coverage there. Which one should we keep? We'll keep that one, I think, and then we'll use this one here. So I'm going to go over the top now. We're running out of paint? No, maybe not. We just want to build it up slowly so that it's not too wet. And as the paint was getting a bit empty here, so I'm kind of switching on and off, on and off, on and off to blast it through. So there we've got our 3 nails ready. That could have been a bit denser maybe, but I'm running out of paint basically, that's what it is. So now I've done my white, I'm just going to clean out some of this residue here that's left inside, so we don't have to spray too much paint through to get the black that I'm trying to use next. So just spray some of that out. And then I can put my other colour in. Now as I said, I'm doing this reverse way round, just so that it comes out clear on the video. So I just make sure that my black's coming through. There it is, nice and cleanly. And what I'm also going to do, and you can, I find this quite useful when I'm doing French, is you can buy a product called, from Media, called varnish. Now what this does is it puts, if I can get it out of the pot, Now let's take this top off. Come on. It's clogged up because I haven't used it for such a long time. So let's just put a little bit of varnish into there. Make sure it's coming through. And I'm just going to varnish over the top of these with a little bit of varnish, just to set the paint. And this is going to help me avoid scratching that very thin layer of white that I've put on there. And you can use the varnishes also when you're using stencils, just to help avoid you scratching the surface of the thin paint with your stencils. You need to let it dry, of course. Now what I'm going to use here to do my French is you want to get some of these forms, these horseshoe forms. Just peel one off, reverse it round. Oops. So we just want to join the two sides together. What we do, you hold it like this. See, between your fingers. It's quite fiddly. So you've got that sort of effect. Hope you can see that. And then what I'm going to do now is, and I hope you can really see this, but let's try, because I'm kind of blocking out what I'm doing here, aren't I? Maybe if I move the camera angle, we might be able to see it a little bit better. Right, so I've got my form fitted onto my fingers like so. And I'm just going to bring this round. I hope you can see this. Place it on the nail and then spray onto the form. And then when I lift off, you're going to get your French on the front there. Now, it's as simple as that basically. And there's your French. Now doing a chevron, you need a thin piece of card and put it onto the nail and go across that end there. When you've done this side, you need to bring this round and go that way. And then you'll get that kind of diagonal thing. Now, to build up your chevron going further up the nail, you need to aim at the card here. So you get a little bit of a white separation between the two. A little bit tricky, but start off and build it here, aiming at that line that I said on the card. And then you'll get a little white line separation there and your faded section there. Let's come round the other side again, aiming at the card, and then you'll get your separation, as you can see, overlapping there. Hope you can see that. There. Now, a piece of card can be useful for doing all sorts of things. you can draw lines with it like this. Slightly more faded. Then you can go across if you wanted to. And then just do a little bit of a one there. So you can see you could do all sorts of lines and designs along there with your nail. So that's sort of like, obviously that's not a particular design, but you get the idea. You can just do all sorts of things with just a piece of card.